Hello, this video is a continuation of one of the previous videos of mine, which was about client libraries in AEM. So in this video, I'll continue on with the topics which I was not able to cover in that video. So let me just summarize what I covered previously. So I was only able to cover the first topic, which was about creating your client library. In order to create your first client library, what you're gonna need to do is you need to create a folder like I did here. So I wanted to create a client library inside etc Clientlibs, AEM Clientlib. So I have to have a folder Clientlib here, and this folder also needs to have some special properties. Its primary type should be CQ client library folder, and it needs to have a category. Now a category is nothing but is just a name for this client library. So whenever you want to include a client lib, you will just give category for that client lib, and CQ will load that for you. So that is what categories mean. So briefly I was able to just cover that in my previous video. Now I'm going to move towards embed and dependencies. So let's first start with embed. So in order to show what embed actually means, I have created a client library here inside etc, and this client library has a category clientlibs example embed, and within my HTML page I am including this client library here. So this is how you include your client library in Sightly or HTML template library or HTL. You need to use this syntax and the categories which I mentioned earlier, name of the client library. You need to pass in your category, and this will be included in your page. Now let's again have a look at our embed client lib. So the category is clientlibs.example.embed. So this client lib will be included, and the content of this client lib is nothing but it's just a sample JS which says hello world. So this is the content of our main client lib which we are embedding in our page, and our client lib also has this embed property, and the value of this embed property is also category which we want to embed with this client lib. So this client lib I have defined here. This is the category of that client library, and the content of this client library is also a single JavaScript file which says embed transitive embed 1. Now this client library embed 1, it also embeds another client library which is here embed 2, and this embed 2, it embeds a third client library embed 3. Embed 3 does not embed any other client library. So let's summarize that hierarchy briefly. So I have a client library called embed, and this embed is calling another client library or embedding another client library embed.1. Embed.1 is embedding another client library embed.2, and embed.2 is calling embed.3. Now let's see when we deploy this, and when we open our page, then which client libraries are loaded and which are not. Let me remove this. So embed. Okay, so here is embed. Now in order to load my client library, CQ has made a call to etc clientlibs AEM embed, and the path of this URL, it's exactly the same as where I have created my client library. So what CQ actually does is it calls in etc clientlibs AEM embed, and after that it search for a JS file, because in the extension I have specified .js, so it will be searching for this JS file, and inside this js.txt it will find a sample.js, the contents of which are included in my client library. But before loading the content of this client library, the definition says that you have to embed another client library. So CQ embeds the second client library just before it loads in our main client library, but it does not consider the embed property from that client lib embed.1 that we included. So to summarize, when we embed our client library, what it means that CQ will create a single client library and it embeds the content of all the client libraries inside the main client library, which is embedding all the different client libraries, and then it will load in the content of the main client library that we are calling in our page. The second property of embed is that it does not support transitive embed. By transitive, what I mean is, if my main client lib is embedding another client lib, and that another client lib is embedding another client lib, then that third level client lib, it won't be included in my main client lib. And the third property is that there will be just a single call for my client library here, as in this embed.js. It does not have any other call for embed1 or embed2. I just have a call for my main client library that I'm included in my main page. So that is what embed means. Now the second thing, let's move on to dependencies. So close all this. For dependencies as well, I have created this dependencies client lib. Its category is dependencies. Its sample.js is still the same, hello world, and it's adding another dependency via its dependencies property, dependencies.1. So dependencies.1, it's here. This is dependencies.1, and it's adding another client lib, dependencies.2, and dependencies.2, it's here. It's adding another client lib, dependencies.3, and dependencies.3, it does not include any other client lib. So now let's go to our HTML. Now I'll comment out this, or rather I'll change it to, I guess it was dependencies. Okay, so now I'll just change that to dependencies. I'll deploy this, and then we'll load in our page again, and I'll show which calls are being made this time. So now this time we have a dependencies.js, and its response has our main client lib hello world, which was included in this, in here, our main client lib, but it does not include the client libs that I added here in this same request, but rather it will load them in their separate calls. So this dependencies, it basically depends on my client lib dependencies 1, so that is loaded before my main dependencies. Now this dependencies 1, it depends on dependencies 2, so that is loaded before this, and this 2 depends on 3, so that is loaded before 2. So this is how dependencies work. So to summarize, these include client libraries. They make their own separate calls, and they don't include their dependencies in the same response, but rather they will have those dependencies loaded on the page using their own separate calls. Unlike Embed, you can see all those client libraries loading in your network tab, and the dependencies support adding your client libs transitively. That means that if your client lib A depends on your client lib B and B depends on C, then all of them will be loaded irrespective of how long the chain goes. So that is what dependencies mean. whether you want to use embed or dependencies attribute to include your client libs. It depends on your use case. Now let's move on to the next topic, creating your page component. Now this is something which is basic in CQ, but let me explain that nonetheless. So you will have your page. I have created a page under content client libs base, and this is the folder. So this is my page, and this page it'll have a resource type. So that resource type is apps client lib component structure page, and it goes to here, apps client lib component structure page. Now because I have two scripts over here, page.html and page.jsp, and Sling resolution will resolve both of these scripts, page.html and page.jsp, with the same priority. Now the question comes is that which one of these will come first alphabetically, because page.html comes alphabetically before page.jsp. So that is why my page.html, this script will be resolved by Sling to load this page here. So to summarize, I have a page which has a resource type. I go to that resource type and I resolve a script, and I write something in that script which I want to show on my main page. Now this is about how Sling resolves your page. Now when you want to create your own pages, then you need to have a template on which that page is based. So I have created a base template under etc under apps client lib template base, and it is of type CQ colon template. This resource type that I'm giving here, it's apps client lib component structure page. Now this is a template. I can create a new page from this template. So let's go to our site admin. I'll create a new page, client libs, with the template, and the title of the template I have mentioned here, client libs basic page. So that is why this title comes here. So I'll create my page. Let's call it test. Now this test, it's created. Let's see this page in our CRX, and the resource type of this is apps client libs component structure page, because that is what we have given in our template. So whatever properties that I give here in my template, when I create a page, CQ will just copy those properties, and then they will be included on my main page. CQ will also create this property, CQ colon template. This property just signifies that this page has been created with this template. But even if I delete this property CQ template from here, oops, I have deleted the whole node. So let's just revert everything and delete that property. Okay, so even if I don't have a CQ template property here, it'll still work. My page.html, which says basic HTML page, it is loaded right here. So this component, it's a CQ component, but it does not have a dialog, it does not have an edit config, so it's not droppable anywhere. But this component is still being resolved is because the resource type on this node, it's of that CQ component. So that is why it's called a page component. It represents a page rather than a droppable component. Now on this page, I can include my client lib using this sitely syntax, giving categories here. This is how you will do that in sitely. And if you're using a JSP, Then in your JSP you can do that using CQ colon include client lib tag, and this CQ, it's a tag lib which has to be loaded like any other tag lib. You just have to give the correct URI for this tag lib, which is this. So this is how you'll include your client libraries inside your page components. Let's move on to the other topic, transitive addition. I have already covered this one with the embed and dependencies. Transitive addition just means that your client lib depends on another client lib. So how those transitive dependencies you can resolve using your client library. Next topic is multiple client libs with the same categories. Now in CQ you can have multiple client libraries. All of those different client libraries, they can have same category for your client library. So I have created this form component. It has a client library of client lib example, client lib components, and I guess all of these will also have, yeah, so all of these have the same category. So let's go to our CQ instance, and let's just check uh, where all we are using these client libraries. So this is a dumplibs console. It's a libs granite UI content dumplibs.html. Here you give a category and you give a type. I'm giving JS. You can simply write CSS, and now then you click on submit, and it will show you where all this client library has been defined. So what that means is that in your page, if you include this category, then from all these different folders, your client libraries, they'll be loaded. Let's just copy that, and in our main page.html, yes, in our main page.html, okay, this was already written here. So I have client libs example, client lib components already written here. I'll deploy this code, and then in the network call we'll see which all client libs calls are being made. So I have form component, and component 2, component 3, 1, 4, 5. Basically all of these are loaded in their separate calls, so I don't have to make any other change. I'm just including my client library as I was doing previously, and CQ will give me all those client library having that category. Now what is the purpose of having same client library in multiple components? So let's suppose, for example, that you have multiple components in your project, and all of those components, they have their own separate client libraries. So now what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to include your client libraries one by one. So suppose if you have 50 components in your project, then you're gonna have to include all those 50 client libraries in whichever HTML file you are including your client libraries. Like I'm doing this in headlibs.html. Then if these components, if these 5-6 components, they have their own separate client libraries, then what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to write this line where I'm including my client library. Then I'm gonna have to include all of those 5 or 6 client libraries separately. But if I give a same category to all of them, then the advantage is that I'm gonna just have to write this once, and all the client libraries that my components they are using, they will be included. And another advantage can be if I say include a new component, and that new component also has a new client library, then I can just give this same category to that new client library as well. And then I don't have to worry about adding that client library explicitly to my HTML in order to make that component work for me. So that is how I can use my client libraries from different components. So the next topic is Clientlibs and apps folder. This is a rather important topic. Now here I have included these client libraries, and all of them are in my apps folder. Now if you have worked on your publish instance, then you must know that apps is forbidden on publish. So CQ won't load these client libraries in my publish environment. So what that essentially means is that even if I include this line in my headlibs.html, this code, it won't work on my publish environment, simply because I have all these separate client libraries in my apps folder. Now in order to resolve that, what I can do is I can have a client library in etc, because etc is accessible on publish environment as well. So in my client library in etc, I'll add that components client library as a dependency. So instead of including my client library which was in apps, what I'll do is I'll include my main client library. This is clientlibs example, clientlib main. I'll include this client library, and this client library has my components client library as its dependency, which is in apps. So what I'm essentially doing is I am accessing a client library which is in etc, and this etc client library is accessing my client libraries which are in apps. All my client libraries which are in apps, they are included transitively via this etc client library. Now I have this components client library as my dependency. So what happens is that CQ loaded this client library, my main client library, but it had those components as dependency, so it loads all of them in random order, all those dependencies, and then it loads my main client library. So that is how I can access my apps client libraries from etc in my publish environment as well. Dumplibs console, I have already shown that somewhere around here. So this is the Dumplibs console. You have categories here. You can type in JS or CSS, and it lists out all the different client libraries that are there in your CQ instance. So let's suppose I go to this client library. So when I click on it, it takes me to this specific client library. So that is what Dumplibs console is for. And another way I frequently use this console is I go to dumplibs.rebuild.html. Its URL is just here. It's for rebuilding all your client libraries. So suppose if you have a client library and you have loaded that client library in your CQ instance, then that client library, it'll go under var clientlibs and your client libraries, say etc clientlibs, whichever. So when you make changes to those client libraries, then it might happen that CQ has already cached your client libraries here, and your cached client libraries are being served instead of the changes that you made in that client library. In order to invalidate all the cache that you have in your var clientlibs, you'll go to this console and then you invalidate all the cache. Then what happens is that var clientlibs You don't have anything in that folder. This rebuild libraries, it is to rebuild all the different client libraries that are there in your instance. But you don't actually need to, rebuild your client libraries again. What happens is that as soon as you load a page, its client library is loaded, and when you refresh your client libs, only those client libraries that the page actually needed, only those client libraries, they'll be created. So the client libs are created on a request basis. So that is about your dump libs console. Now the last thing is minification. Let's go to system console and config manager. Now here I have a configuration called HTML library manager, and it has one specific flag which says minify your client libraries using YUI compression. So when you check this flag and then you save your client libraries, what will happen is that when you load your client libraries on your pages, then let's just see, this is my main client lib from etc. This client lib is loaded, but see this time that I have the minified version of it. Now in my main client lib, it's under etc client lib, I have a sample.js. It's not pretty clear with this client library because I don't have anything much in this client library. So let's just include a client library where I have actually written something. So I'll go to headlibs and I'll include my dependencies client library. So what I'll do is I'll go to my dependencies sample.js. I'll include say var abc equals to she, and console.log abc. Let's deploy this one. Now I have my dependencies here. Now I can see something minified. So what happened was I included a variable in my client library, and I'm just printing the variable. But what happened was I wrote ABC. The minified version, it just has A. Now it does not matter that I have written ABC. I can simply write something arbitrary. It'll still be a single alphabet or a double alphabet name, not more than that, because this is the minified version of it. Okay, so I have written something arbitrary, which is a very long name, and the minified version, it has a single alphabet name for this A, and the argument that I was passing over here, it was dollar, and it has been changed to B. So the minification is useful for two purposes. The first one is that it will reduce the size of your client library, because a client library is just a text file, and in your text file, if you have a variable name which is 1,000 words long, then it's gonna take more space than a variable which has a single alphabet name, obviously. So that is how the minification drives down the size of your client library, so they can be loaded faster by your page. And the second thing is that your client library is obfuscated, and it's not very clear what my code is actually doing if my code is minified, and everything that I have written in my code is is written in a single alphabet variables. So this is a very small client library. If I include say 1,000 line of JavaScript file and I minify that, then it'll become very clear. Then you can see that the client lib code is obfuscated. You won't be able to, just look at the code and decipher it to know that what the code is actually doing. So that is another way how minification can be used. So this was all about client libraries that I wanted to cover. If you have something else that you want me to elaborate on, then please post a comment, and I'll be sure to reply on that comment. And as usual, thanks for finding this video, and see you soon.